council meeting of Monday, or I'm sorry, Tuesday, it's Tuesday because of the holiday, Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, but I don't see our flag bearer. He's missing right now, but he was here a second ago. We'll wing it with the flag in our mind. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands one nation
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you like to call the roll?
Counselor Hilton,
Present.
Counselor Edwards,
Where'd John just go to?
Counselor Clark,
Present.
Counselor Perry,
Present.
Counselor Cook, Counselor Edwards,
I hear him.
in here. And Counselor Dinger.
Here.
Counselor Driggs is absent at this time.
Okay. And with us, of course, we have Town Administrator Chris Cotta, Assistant Solicitor Travis DaCosta, and Town Clerk Nancy Mello, and Deputy Clerk Jeannie B. So we'll start with the consent agenda. Item A, approval of Town Council minutes. 3 sets, September 26, 2020, special session, executive, September 30th, 2020, special session, and September 30th, 2020, special session, executive session. Item
Hey,
B.
folks, Nancy can't get on. She doesn't know where I don't know if you're gonna send it to her. I know I had it. I have no idea.
I'll send it to her.
Yeah, I didn't have it either, so.
Sorry for interrupting.
Chris will send it. Item B, acknowledge receipt of minutes from boards, commissions, and committees. There are 3 sets from the Board of Canvassers and 3 sets from the Planning Board. Item C, acknowledge receipt of reports, the Police and Fire Department overtime reports for September 2020, and the Department monthly reports for September 2020. Item D, acknowledge receipt of correspondence. The first is from the Town of East Greenwich, a resolution supporting an emergency exemption for all Rhode Island municipalities in computation of maintenance of effort requirements established by RIGL 16-723. The second is the Town of Little Compton, a resolution relating to state assistance during the COVID emergency. And finally, item E, approval of tax assessor abatements. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda?
I have a question.
Yes.
Does anyone, I don't have September 30th special session. Did I miss it? Is it in here somewhere? I've got the executive sessions, but I don't have those minutes. It's A2. I don't have it. I start out with 4A2.
That should be
Wait
it.
a minute, hold it. Is that it? Wait a minute,
482.
Okay, all right. I don't know what I was thinking.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I got it.
In that case, do I have a motion? John,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
is there a second?
I
Second,
second it.
I'll do a roll call. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
yes.
Counselor Perry, and finally Counselor Cook.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. We are now going to take a moment of silence for Richard Hart, also known as Dick Hart, who I'm not even sure you could list all of the various ways that he has served the town, from being a town councilor a long time ago to serving on numerous boards and commissions. I'm not even sure I know how many years they add up to. Nancy, do you off the top of your head?
Me. So it's quite a bit.
Quite a
It's
few.
20 plus.
It's 20 plus easily. a longtime servant of the town who did a tremendous amount. So I'd like everybody to just to stand for a moment of silence in honor of Dick Hart. Thank you, everybody.
Tricia,
Yes?
me, for some reason, I just got the Zoom email sent, so I am present now. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
Okay. I'm sure the clerk will note that.
Thank you.
Public comments, as far as I know, we have not received any public comments. Is that correct? On to public hearings. Approval of proposed amendment to the Tiverton Code of Ordinances to add section 10-39 care of dogs. So this is a public hearing which has been advertised. Just to give everybody an update on this, essentially, and Travis, feel free to correct me or jump in here. Essentially, this mirrors the state law. So everything that is in here is already memorialized as state law. The benefit to adding it for us as an ordinance, however, would allow us to bring it to municipal court rather than having to file a superior court case. And that means, it could be handled less expensively and more expeditiously in case of a violation through municipal court. Travis, do you want to add anything?
No, just the Rhode Island statute 41342 is what this looks like. It tracks and mirrors very, very closely, almost word for word. So absolutely, everything you said is correct.
Do any counselors have any questions before we open this up to the public hearing? Or Chris, did you have your hand up?
No, I was just going to tell you that we need to open up to the public.
Okay. Any questions from counselors?
No,
Okay. In that case, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak? Chris, would you?
So if anybody's in the waiting room or if anybody wants to call in, according to what the agenda is, telephone number is posted and I'll also give it to you. If you're in the waiting room, you can raise your hand if you want to speak on this particular topic. And if you would like to call in, if you're on YouTube Live, you actually have to call in. And that phone number is 877-853-5247. So I see no hands in the attendee room. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the attendee room. Again, I'm going to ask, does anybody have any questions as it relates to this ordinance? Please raise your hand. And if anybody would like to call in, the number is 877-853-5247.
Chris, you want to do one last call just in case?
I'm going to give it one last time. If you want to call in, it's 877-853-5247 to speak at the public hearing on the dog ordinance. And if anybody in the waiting room wants to speak, please raise your hand. And I see nobody with their hand raised, and there's been no additional attendees with the phone number. So I think we're all set. We can close the public hearing.
Okay. In that case, if there is not further discussion or questions, would anyone like to make a motion regarding the dog ordinance language?
Am I allowed to do it?
Yes, go ahead, Donna, if you'd like to
Okay.
make a motion.
Oh, sure. I would like to make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to the town code of ordinances to add section 1039 care of dogs.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? In that case, we'll go to roll call vote. Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So the ordinance is adopted. Moving on to appointments and resignations, and we have several tonight. The first is for the Conservation Commission, which is a 7-member board with 3-year terms. There is 1 vacancy, and we have 1 new applicant, Sean Frodema of 2480 Main Road. Madam Clerk, is Sean here? Oh, I see he is.
It's our newly retired police officer.
Yes. Sean, can you hear us?
I can. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for coming and thanks for applying.
Thanks.
So Sean, do you just want to tell us a little bit about your interest in the Conservation Commission?
Yeah, sure. So obviously I retired yesterday from the Tiverton Police Department.
For how many years?
I did 20 in Tiverton. I also did 3 with the U.S. Border Patrol in California. So I had 23 years of law enforcement, and I just felt it was time.
Let us just stop and congratulate you on your retirement and thank you for your many years of service to the town. So
Thanks.
we're glad to see that you're still interested in serving in your retirement. So go ahead and let us know about the Conservation Commission and your interest.
So, I have a vested interest in the town. I've lived here since I was about 17 years old. I'm 46 now. My wife has a business here. We just recently built a house about 2 years ago behind Helger's Ice Cream. We both love Tiverton, and I love the land here, and I just want to become a part of the community now that I'm not really part of the official community as an employee of the town, but I want to be part of the community in a different way now and serve on some boards and learn some new things.
Excellent. Do any members of the council have any questions? Denise, you had your hand up.
Dawn, I really don't have a question, but I want to reiterate what Trish said. Thank you for your many years of service. I worked with you with the police negotiations, and I enjoyed it. Your fairness and your love for the town showed. And I really appreciate that even after retiring, you want to help us. So thank you very much, Sean.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the council? Steve, Clark?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Sean. And again, thank you for your service and congratulations. In your application here, you applied for several committees or commissions rather. And I guess the first one that's up is the Conservation Commission. I'm curious why you're signing up for, well, at least 2, maybe 3. It depends on whether I look at the agenda or whether I look at your application. Your application listed 3. But anyway, why multiple commissions? And have you sat in on any of these commissions at this point?
So honestly, Mr. Clark, I have a lot of free time now, being retired. So that's one of the main reasons that I signed up for a few boards. I kind of felt that open space and conservation sort of ran parallel. I could be incorrect in that completely, but I sort of felt that they were more of a parallel, boards type membership to be on. So that's why I chose those two. I did put personnel board on there as well. I did put that one on there for the main reason for the fact that I've been on the hiring committee with the town of Tiverton, the police department. I've been through the hiring process. I've done some interviews with new applicants, done background checks, things of that nature. So I felt that I had a particular type of skill that might qualify me for that in particular. But in reality, I really like the outdoors. I appreciate the outdoors. I appreciate the land we live on, and I want to learn more about it. So.
Okay, so your intent at this point is to apply for the conservation and the open space, but not the personnel?
Well, I did put my name in for personnel board. I wasn't on the agenda. I just noticed that today that I wasn't. I'm not sure why, but that's fine. Like I said, you know, the two main ones were open space and conservation. I just felt that I had a lot of experience with personnel and I could have applied some of my knowledge there as well.
All right, thank you.
Denise?
Nancy, how long has this been advertised for this position?
We advertise once a quarter, which would, in fact, one just went out for this week. So the last time we advertised, I can't remember when, but it had to be like August or September.
And we didn't have any takers at that time.
I put that ad in the Scarlet Times each quarter, which follows the board and commission policy. Any requests I get come in. They're
So
on.
Trish, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to waive our policy and make an appointment this evening.
Second.
Okay, so there's, oh, well, hang on a second.
What?
Wait a minute. We'll have discussion. Hang on a second, Nancy. Let's just sort it out before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So Sean, in general, and we're short of volunteers, so we do have a few people who are serving on multiple boards and commissions. In general, the policy though is to try not to do that just because it gives other people an opportunity. In this case, though, you're the only applicant for either the Conservation Commission or the Open Space Commission, and we certainly do need volunteers. We do have 2 applications for the Personnel Board for those 2 vacancies. So, in terms of your priorities, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. You'd be okay with continuing your interest in the Conservation Commission and Open Space. And if there were other applicants for the Personnel Board, that would be okay with you?
Yes, definitely. I would prefer the top 2, open space and conservation, over personnel,
Okay,
but does interest me as well. So maybe in the future.
there you go. There's always plenty of time to volunteer for, for a different one later in the future. So Nancy, you have a question?
Maybe you sort of answered it, Trish, but I'm not sure. Can he be on both?
Yes.
Okay,
It's-
thank you.
It
Thank
is, it's a, in the boards and policies manual, it's recommended that a person not serve on more than one, but we are short volunteers and we have a number of folks who are actually on more than one simply because we don't have enough volunteers to go around. John?
So I have a question, I guess, for the clerk. I know that these openings go out once a quarter. Do we have it posted somewhere that's easy to find on the website as well? What boards and commissions openings are?
We put that advertisement on the website as well, yes, for what we're in need of. Sometimes I get people that call, but there isn't openings in that particular board that they're looking for.
And I don't want to stray too far from the agenda item, but maybe it might be helpful at some point, maybe in the announcements, that we reiterate where we can locate those so that members of the community don't have to wait for the Secana Times next quarter.
Okay, it's always on the website, though. We put
It is
the-
I
always
found
on
it
the
on the website.
Town Administrator Cotta has this hand up.
And just want to ask the clerk, because I believe both F and G are both reappointments. They are not new appointments.
Right.
Yes, but a reappointment is considered an available appointment. It
Okay.
doesn't mean you automatically get reappointed if there's
Okay,
other.
all right.
Right.
Mm,
Okay, so Denise, you were making a motion to waive our policy to appoint Mr. Ferdinand to Ferdima, sorry, Sean.
Yeah, well,
Thank you,
we
John.
are still on 7A, correct?
Correct.
We're on 7A.
So, yes, I made a motion to waive our policy.
Seconded by me.
There's a second. So roll call vote, Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor Clark,
Yes,
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes,
Counselor Cook,
yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry, where is Joe?
He dropped a couple minutes ago.
Ms. Taylor's in the attendee room. No, he's not.
No, I think he left.
Yeah, his internet over there can be really tough.
Okay, well, we'll see if he comes back and I'm a yes. So,
I'd like to
So-
make a motion
go ahead.
to appoint Sean, and I'm probably gonna
Redeema,
mess up Fatima to the Conservation Commission for a term that expires 4/15/22.
second.
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So congratulations, Sean. You are now a member of the Conservation Commission. And now we will take up your application for the Open Space Commission, which I think you've sort of explained to us, your interest in both of these things. So Denise,
I'd like to make a motion to waive our policy and appoint this evening.
Second.
okay, Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So do I have and Sean, just so you know what's going on, and other people understand, we should remind them, our normal policy, especially if we have multiple applicants, is to interview one night and then we come back and vote at the next meeting. But when there's only one applicant for a position, we can vote to waive that policy and go ahead and do the appointment that night. So for those who are wondering at home what's going on, that's what we're doing here. Denise,
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Sean Fatima to the Open Space Commission, appointment to expire 4/15/22.
Second.
there's a second. Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Sean, congratulations. Now you are also a member of the Open Space Commission. And given that you've noted to us how much time that you have in your retirement, there are plenty of other one-off activities, things like,
Well,
Christmas
keep
tree
me
lighting,
informed.
all those other things. So we may be calling you.
Great, I'm available.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for your many years of service and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. On to the Harbor Commission, which is a 9-member board, 2-year terms. There's one vacancy. We have one applicant, Phyllis Ibbotson of 13 Highland Road. And I see that Phyllis is here. Welcome. Phyllis, if you could just tell us a little bit about your interest in the Harbor Commission.
Sure. I actually was interviewed by the council about, I guess, last fall. I don't know if you remember. And then I had decided to let another fellow come on that wanted to be on the board. But my reason for being on is just, mainly a love of the water. Number one, I'm a boater. I race on the water, kayak, swim. Also, as past Commodore, I think it was Commodore of TYC at the last meeting. I'm ex-Commodore now, so this is perfect. I have, some spare time now. But as still on the board at TYC, and being property owners on the water, I'm concerned with the, property rights, riparian rights. So that's one of my reasons. I've wanted to serve the town in some way, and looking through all the different commissions, this was the most interesting to me, I think there's a lot, that I will learn from this, but I think a lot of it would be really, helpful. I'd like to be able to, I'm actually a realtor, so I, get questions all the time and do have a lot of waterfront listings and sales. I get a lot of questions on moorings and public access, and of course, working with CRMC and DEM with septics and cesspools and such like that. I just feel it will for me, it's going to be a learning experience on this, and hopefully I can give back to the committee.
It's great. Thank you. Do any counselors have any questions? John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say, I was really excited about Mrs. Ibbotson applying the last time when we interviewed her the last time around. I was disappointed that she decided to pull her name out of the hat, but understand why. And I think that she would be a phenomenal fit for us in the Harbor Commission. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to waive our policy and appoint this evening.
Second,
There's a motion and a second. So roll call vote. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Dee Maderas,
yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
yes.
and I'm a yes. So do any other counselors have any questions for Phyllis before we vote? No?
I just have, thank you, Phyllis. I did remember that you came before us and seemed to be a very able candidate the last time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What's happened since you applied is that we were supposed to have a memorandum of understanding with the CRMC, which has now been taken over by the Harbor Commission, and I think that they'll be able to look further into it and take this over the field goal to protect the interests. So I think you'll get up to speed really quick with it, and there are some issues to protect some of the interest of Tiverton for
Sure.
water rights and some of that. So just so you're aware, and thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Counselor Edwards,
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Phyllis Ibbotson, 13 Highland Road, to the Harbor Commission for a term to expire 7/15/2022.
is there a second?
Second,
There's a second. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes,
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yeah.
Counselor Dee Maderas,
yes.
and I am also a yes. So Phyllis, thank you for applying and congratulations. You're now a member of the Harbor Commission.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we have 4 reappointments, which I think we can do straight out tonight, given that there are no other applicants for the position. The first is the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. It's a 5-member board, 3-year terms. There are 2 vacancies. We have only 1 applicant, Aldridge Cormier of 348 Sousa Road. That's a reappointment request for a term to expire October 15th, 2023. So do I have a motion on a reappointment? John?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Aldridge Cormier, 348 Sousa Road, to the Historic Preservation Advisory Board for a term to expire 10/15/2023.
Second,
There's a second. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
yes,
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Dee Maderas,
yes.
and I am also a yes. So thank you for Mr. Cormier for reapplying. The Juvenile Hearing Board, a 5-member board, 3-year terms. There's 1 vacancy and 1 request for reappointment. Amanda Souza Vieira of 160 Ledger Lane, request reappointment to expire October 15th, 2023. John?
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Amanda Souza Vieira, 160 Ledger Lane, to the Juvenile Hearing Board for a term to expire 10/15/2023.
second,
There's a second. I'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry. Joe?
yes, yes,
Thank you. Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Dee Maderas,
Yes,
and I am also a yes. So again, thank you to Ms. Souza Vieira for serving. The Personnel Board, there are 2 requests for reappointment. It's a 5-member board, 4-year terms. There are 2 vacancies. The first request for reappointment is Mark Rizzi of 88 Barnes Swallow Drive, requesting reappointment to expire October 15th, 2024.
Madam President,
Yes?
my agenda just says request appointment. Is this a reappointment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I read
I
ahead.
know he says 1 appointment.
Nope, you're right. That's a new appointment. I apologize. But there are 2 vacancies. So is
No,
Ms. Rizzi
Trish,
with us?
That is a reappointment.
I think that's a
typo.
reappointment. That's Maggie.
Right, that's what I thought. So
Yes.
that should say reappointment, correct?
That's correct, as well as the item G, Lori Robinson. Those
Yeah,
last
right.
2 are reappointments.
Oh, okay,
Those are both reappointments, yes?
okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
Where's
so,
Rizzi?
okay, so that's what I thought too. Denise?
I just want to say that Maggie has been a great person on the Personnel Board. I've been involved in watching many of the interviews of the Personnel Board throughout the years. Well, and Maggie has done a wonderful job. Her questions are right on, and she's very fair. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Margarita C. Rizzi to the Personnel Board, term expiring 10/15/24.
Second.
Do you want to just call that a reappointment though, just to be clear? since we're
Reappointment,
waiving-
yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Trish.
no problem. So there's a motion and a second. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes,
Counselor Cook?
I just have one question.
Yes.
Is there a reappointment request other than this? Well, I have an email from her. Is this the same thing?
Yes, these are both, F and G are both, they are both reappointments. They're not new appointments.
No, I don't have a, what, the town request.
Yes,
I'm missing it.
sometimes they fill the full appointment request out. Sometimes they're unable to fill the whole one out on time and they send us an email to
Okay,
confirm
all
that
right.
they want reappointment.
Right, and we
All
accept
right.
that.
Right.
okay. I was just asking because I'm looking frantically for the other thing. Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Are you a yes, Donna?
Yes, I'm a yes.
Okay. Counselor Perry?
yes,
And I am also a yes. So again, thank you to Ms. Rizzi for serving. And finally, again, the Personnel Board, there's a request for a reappointment. Lori Robinson, 35 Campion Avenue, reappointment to expire October 15, 2024. John?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Lori Robinson, 35 Campion Avenue, to the Personnel Board for a term to expire 10/15/2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
yes,
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos.
Yes.
Did I got everybody, right? Yes. And I am also a yes. So again, thank you to Ms. Robinson for serving. Moving on, the Town Council sitting as a Board of Licensing. Item A, Sean M. Kelly of 97 Bucks Way requests approval for a special event permit for a Halloween display. I don't know if Mr. Kelly's here or not. Denise?
He is not.
This isn't, I don't know who's here that could answer me,
Him.
but this isn't just a Halloween display. I don't know if any of you have ever seen what Mr. Kelly does. He used to live on Stafford Road, and he has like an open haunted house. And in the past, we have requested that he has police there because we had a couple of incidents, not to Mr. Kelly's fault, but a couple of people almost got hit by a car there. So that's why we did it on Stafford. A great deal of people show up to this. And I'm concerned because where he's having it now is a very residential area. And last year I got a couple of calls from the neighbors saying that the neighborhood was really full of cars and quite a wreck. I also know that this is an event where people get out of their car and they walk around. And I'm concerned because of all the COVID restrictions, whether or not this is allowed.
Well, I do have a question for the town administrator on that, because their DBR does have a policy now on approval of special events for during this whole COVID thing. Do we know if this is compliant?
So
I also don't see a backup to this. Does anyone have a backup?
I
So, the
see
beginning of the
something on
second one.
back. Yeah, I see something on the back of this that Chief Jones is approving it.
Well, I talked to Chief Jones about it and because I called him to ask him, I just don't know the restrictions on how many people can go in there. And besides the point, I'm worried about the traffic on Crandall Road. You have to go down this road to get onto Crandall. And I'm worried about the parking on Crandall Road.
So my understanding of this was that he's not going to have any more than what the state would allow as attendees at any particular time. So they're going to have to filter through. He is going to have attendees there, and I believe he is going through the state protocol to ensure that it's a permissible event. I did tell him as long as it, passed muster with the Department of Health, he would be fine. As long as it was monitored, manned, and they were socially distanced and followed the COVID restrictions.
I do have a question about the parking though.
We required police when he was on Stafford Road because the traffic was so bad. I'm wondering if we should have a police patrol there just to make sure that the COVID rules are being followed. And also because I don't know if anyone knows where this road is, but you have to go down Crandall, take a right, and it's like 4 houses down. I'm just, I know that last year the neighbors said it got pretty full of people in cars. And I'm also concerned about the COVID restrictions, to tell you the truth. We're not having the trunk or treat because of it. And I just want to make sure that he's limiting the amount of people that go into that place, because what I've seen in the past is it's a very popular attraction. I do understand that Mr. Kelly he takes donations and then he gives it to charities, which I think is a great thing. But because of COVID, I'm a little concerned about this year.
Okay.
And I don't know if maybe we should have a police. And if we had the police there like we did in the past, they could make sure the traffic doesn't get too backed up on Crandall. And they can make sure that people are doing what they should do because of COVID.
So I do know that the recreation is not doing the trunk or treat, but they are going to do something different where it's just a drive-through, and police will be stationed for that. But on this, I'm sure we could, if it's permissible, we can have a police detail there.
So
It really needs to be monitored and needs to be conforming to the state guidelines.
So I'm just going to read you guys something. This is for, this came from DBR. And it's about the plan for municipalities to inform DBR of municipally approved events. Below, find the summary of the final policy with changes in bold. You can submit plans electronically here, blah, blah, blah. Each municipality retains the right to make all approvals. DBR only approves requests for weddings over certain capacity limits. A reminder that a social gathering currently has a maximum of 15 persons. Examples of social gatherings are birthday parties or other events. An event is often advertised and/or requires tickets for entry. For public events and venues of assembly, municipalities or state agencies will review and/or approve plans for venues of assembly, events, or activities as part of the local state agency approval process if one, they're subject to the 125 person cap, or 2 have capacities greater than 100 people for outdoor events and 50 people for indoor events. Municipalities and state agencies must share a copy of approved event templates with DBR. Event templates should be submitted for review at least 15 days in advance of the event whenever possible. These changes go into effect on October 16. I don't really, I'm not positive whether or not this is compliant based on, because they go through the haunted house, right?
Well, it's outside. It's
I
outside.
mean, it's outside,
It is a,
but how many people,
Oh, an amaze.
how
It
many,
says
You gotta
amaze.
see it. It's quite something.
right, but how many people go through this? More than 125?
In the past, I'd say absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you
I
go
mean-
through something or do you walk by it?
Well, no.
Yes.
You go in the yard and there's a whole bunch of Halloween stuff going on, spooky stuff, and people jumping out. In the past, I'll have to tell you that this was more than a one-day event. I think it used to be a 2-day or 3-day event. And it was quite an attraction, especially with people in my neighborhood, because it was right here. But I would say in the past, there has been more than 150. But I mean, I can't say that for all certainty, but anyone who witnessed it would say that. And that's why we need a, that's why when he had it at Stafford Road, I'd say about 2 or 3 years ago, we did make a police officer be there to direct traffic because it was that bad. You couldn't get down Stafford Road.
Okay, so,
Chris.
Chris has his hand up, okay.
Chris has his hand
he
up.
does want it for 2 evenings, the 30th and the 31st. So it may be prudent to push this off to your next meeting to make sure he can qualify for all the state requirements before we would authorize this to move forward. The issue is he's gonna have to build it, but I don't know if he can do it in that short of time.
John?
You know, I want to say for the record, he's been really a holiday tradition in Tiverton. And I know when my kids were young, it was something they look forward to every year. And if we, and he really does a terrific job, and it's really safe, fun. But I just want to make sure that we are following COVID. And I think if we do let him do this, and I'm not against it if everything fits, I just think that maybe a police detail would be a good idea.
So we might consider restricting for town residents as well, instead of anybody from out of town.
Oh,
I
they're
don't know if
gonna
we can
come
do that,
from out of
Chris.
town.
That would be difficult with cars pulling up.
Yeah, has any,
Because it happens in the dark. I mean, that's the other thing is this isn't a daylight event. It's a,
Well, if you had a police detail, you can make sure the mass cars continue moving on, that they're not allowed to stay.
no,
Madam
I-
President,
hang on one second. I'll get to everybody. John, go ahead.
So, I mean, I think, listen, I understand we have Corona restrictions. He's obviously, Mr. Kelly is aware of these things. Mr. Kelly actually reached out to me directly and I connected him with Mr. Cotta to, talk about what he was planning before it even, came forward to us. I think if he's gone through the process and he's, willing to, fall within the regulations that the state has, I don't see why we don't just grant this to him. I mean, he does have to, build and set this thing up. It's just, I think we should just approve it and stipulate that he has to stay within the restrictions, put on these events by the state.
Okay, Joe, I think you wanted to say something?
yeah, Madam President,
Go ahead,
I've attended quite a few of these events at his house. He's always been willing to abide by whatever we set down. And I think he would do the same here, granted the permission to do this. So I don't have any problem with allowing him as long as he abides by the restrictions.
Anyone else?
yeah,
Donna?
I was just wondering when them not having the trunk or treat, if that's going to double the amount of people that go to this event, because it will probably be the only thing. And how do you stop, like, I think trunk or treat last year, I heard an enormous amount of people showed up. There could be so many people showing up, and how do you stop that? You can't. They're all going to be there. I was just wondering, I'm not against it. I just don't know, did anybody, how would the, neighbors feel about all of these people showing up? Maybe 200 cars, or, I mean, you can't stop them from coming from Fall River, and a lot of them come from Fall River. I'm not against Fall River, but it is what it is.
Well, I think I think as Councilor DiMederos mentioned, that does seem to be one of the issues, is that now that it's on a side street and it's a smaller side street, that parking is a bit of a problem, and that the neighbors are a little a little troubled by that. So, I suppose, given the time, I mean, one option would be to approve it pending, compliance with all, with the state COVID regulations, and, maybe the requirement that there has to be a police detail there, so that, at a certain point, that if there's no more parking on the street, there is not, that Denise, go ahead.
I don't think Mr. Kelly would object to police detail, because last time he was willing. He was what, Chris?
In his emails, and the emails on the back of this, he's already agreed to it. He's agreed to do all the planning that the state has required. He's agreed to have details.
Perfect.
Okay.
Then I would have no objection, as long as he follows the state regulations, and as long as there's a police detail there to make sure it's safe. And there's a lot of kids crossing streets, and if people decide to park on Crandall, I would feel much better if there was a police detail around.
I don't see any time on this. When does this start? Oh, wait a minute. I do. 5 to 10.
5 to 10.
All right.
Who pays for the police detail?
He does.
He does. He does. I think it's, I don't remember. It's 4 hours, Chris. He has to pay a minimum of 4 hours.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's what all the police details are.
So my only other request in this amending this would be that, in addition to that with the police chief or someone from the police department, that they work out a parking plan, so that, if the chief says, look, this is where it's safe to, because it's not that wide a street either. And so, it's maybe not good to have parking on both sides, or, and also to be respectful of other people's driveways. So that it be compliant. I do think somebody needs to, in theory, we are responsible as a municipality if we're giving this special permit for making sure that it's compliant with COVID. So as part of that, I would like the town administrator to be able to ensure that it is compliant with the state regulations, since we're giving this permit.
Okay.
So that, we'd ask him to come in and double check that they're following all the state requirements on this, and a police detail, and a parking plan to be worked out with the police chief and or his designated representative.
Okay. Patrick is here as well. Do you have anything to add, Patrick? Chief?
Good evening. So I've worked with Mr. Kelly before, and as Councilor DiMederos said, when this was on Stafford Road, we had a issue in the past, just as far as history. A drunk driver ended up coming through and people were crossing the street. And as you can imagine, on Halloween with kids in tow, that created an issue that was no fault of Mr. Kelly's. He agreed to work with us and has worked with us while he was working on Stafford Road. But now that he lives on Bucks Way, clearly it's in a residential neighborhood. So I heard the council president. I'll work with the administrator. I've spoken to Mr. Kelly personally. I do also have, if anything were to change, the COVID restrictions, given the uptick that we're seeing, knowing that the state has put regulations on all of us. So if the council, if it's your prerogative to pass this permit, I'll work with the administrator, work with Mr. Kelly, and have a plan. And if you choose to put it on your next agenda for the 26th as just as an update, just so we can just say that we're all on the same page, we have a parking plan, I've worked with the administrator, and also it kind of gives us a good picture of what COVID's going to look like in 2 weeks, because it might be something that we could all change our minds, and you might not have my recommendation in 2 weeks if it gets bad.
I'm agreeable to that.
Okay, I think that sounds amenable. Yes, so we'll, okay, where's Travis?
Okay.
Help me out here. We're going to issue this permit tonight, but we're,
It's conditionally on approving with state plans and administrator approves that it meets the state guidelines with a parking plan.
absolutely.
With an update in 2 weeks to see how
Correct.
plans are moving forward.
Okay, so that's the motion.
And I'll make it.
Is there, Travis, are we okay with that?
Absolutely.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion in a second. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs, Nancy,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
yes,
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes.
Trish, I'd like to also tell Mr. Kelly that I appreciate he's trying to do this year, because nothing is normal this year.
It's
And this
true.
has been, the kids in Tiverton look forward to this. So I hope that this does go through, because it'll be one little thing that we can do to maintain our holiday traditions.
Good point. All right, moving on to item B, Ocean View Petroleum LLC, 861 Main Road, request approval for petroleum storage license subject to meeting all legal requirements. Madam Clerk, can you confirm that they're currently meeting all legal requirements? They seem to be from their paperwork.
Yes.
Okay, in that case, do I have a motion? From somebody? John?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to grant or approve the petroleum storage license, subject to meeting all legal requirements for Ocean View Petroleum LLC, 861 Main Road, Tiverton.
Second.
Second. Okay, Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
yes,
and thank you, and I am also a yes. Item C, Ocean View Petroleum LLC, 861 Main Road, request approval for tobacco dealer license subject to meeting all legal requirements. Do I have a motion?
Madam President,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to grant the tobacco dealer license to Ocean View Petroleum LLC, 861 Main Road, Tiverton, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
there's a second. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
Counselor Cook, Donna,
Come here.
okay, Counselor Perry,
yes,
Thought I saw something in here that
I gotta go.
you have. I guess I had a question, but I can't ask it now, I guess, but
well, you can, but
yes.
it's a debate, it's a requirement. Everybody who sells cigarettes has to have a tobacco license. It's a pretty routine thing, Donna.
No, I get that. It's just that I read somewhere in here that the fact that he's selling petroleum products and someone might light up near gasoline.
No,
I don't know. I can't
Donna,
find it now.
Donna, you know, you know how gas stations have little convenience stores that go with them? That's what this is.
No, I realize that. I just thought I had read something. That's okay.
Okay.
I'm all set. Yes.
Are you a yes? Okay.
Yep.
And Joe, did I get your vote? Joe?
you got my vote. I said yes.
Thank you. And I'm also a yes. So moving right along, Walgreens 677 Main Road, Tiverton requests approval for tobacco dealer license subject to meeting all legal requirements. John?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to grant the tobacco dealer license to Walgreens Company, 677 Main Road, Tiverton, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Steve. Counselor Clark,
yes.
Counselor Driggs,
yes,
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos, Denise, Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
yes,
All right, Denise, one more time. Counselor DiMederos. She might have stepped away. I am also a yes.
Yes, yes, sorry, yes.
There you go. Item E, Walgreen 677 Main Road requests approval for holiday license subject to meeting all legal requirements. Do I have a motion? John? Thank you.
Madam President, motion to grant the holiday license to Walgreens Company, 677 Main Road, Tiverton, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second,
Thank you. Counselor Clark?
can I ask a question?
Yes.
What's a holiday license?
It's something archaic that we do in this town.
I mean,
they're
what-
open
what
on
is it?
holidays. It's very self-explanatory, right, Nance?
$10 or something.
Right.
Spend more time on this thing than we need to.
So like on Columbus Day yesterday, they could stay open.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry.
It's
Okay.
like
It's a
like
holdover from
It's like
1700. when the
yeah,
town
it's a
was
hold,
founded.
it's a holdover from the, it's a holdover from the
1900s.
days of the blue laws.
So
Okay,
it just has to, it has to do with hours.
yeah, okay. So Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Steve, Counselor Driggs,
Yes,
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes,
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes also.
Madam
Yes.
President, might be
Yes.
worth mentioning, whoever the next council is, y'all should just do away with this.
Yeah. Nancy
I
says
didn't,
no.
I
Okay,
did-
all right, let's not get off topic here. Finally, the last one is, I think this is pronounced Bapashri, I think,
Mhm.
Inc., which does business as Muya Burgers, 777 Tiverton Casino Boulevard, requests approval for victualling license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. I'm just going to check, Madam Clerk. It appears that they're meeting all legal requirements, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion? John?
Madam President, make a motion to grant the vittling license to Bapeshri DBA Muya Burgers at 777 to Tiverton Casino Boulevard.
second,
Counselor Clark?
Yes.
Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Driggs?
yes,
Counselor DiMederos?
yes,
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
Yes,
And I'm also a yes. Okay, moving on to general business. Counselor Cook, Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation Grant and Scholarship Program.
Yes. I think everyone saw some of the advertisements on TV, and they were advertising they had a grant program. So I just looked it up online, and it was really quite something. Firehouse Subs was started by firefighters, and first ran into having some of their subs when I was down south, and apparently there's one up here in Cranston now. So anyway, it's also it's a number one. They offer up to $25,000 grant per quarter, and I shared the information with Fire Chief Reimels, and he then contacted the town administrator and the safety equipment, and awarded, and you can apply for these every quarter, which is interesting. After 600 people apply, they just shut it down. So if awarded, would get $15,000, which they could buy a Lucas chest compression device, which Chief Reimel said was a great thing because they were not getting it because it was no capital expenses this year. So it doesn't require, one of the things we spoke about was it going to cost the town any money? And looking through the paperwork, it's just a flat out grant. It doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to match it. It is very competitive because money's tight right now. How competitive it used to be, I don't know, because this is the first time. It also has a scholarship program which promotes the profession of firefighters, EMT, and safety professionals for students who are interested in pursuing this career. So as speaking to Chief Reimels, this would be something, and I'll let him speak, that would be great to promote in the high schools so that any student that's interested in going into the fire profession, there are actually scholarships that would help with the expense of going into that field. And I think before they can even apply, if I'm wrong, Chief, just let me know. I believe before you can even apply to go to the firefighter school or academy, you have to have some courses taken and pass them with a certificate. And I'll let you take it, Bruce. I've said enough.
Well, let's, Nancy, I know you have your hand up, but I'd like to ask, Chief Reimels, welcome, Chief, and the town administrator, if they've, reviewed this and if they're interested in it. I don't think they're necessarily asking us for a vote on this, just to let us know if they're interested in actually applying. So Chief Reimels,
right.
why don't you go ahead? Nancy, let's let the chief speak.
I just have one clarification from Donna, if possible.
Okay.
Donna, when I read the paperwork you submitted to illustrate this grant, it sounded like they used the figure of 25,000 just as that it could be up to 50,000. That's my question.
Right. But that's up to Chief Reimels how he would want to use this. I mean, I just introduced it. It's definitely in his arena. It's not in my arena.
Correct, but it sounds like it could go up to 50,000. Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yep.
Chief,
You're muted.
You're muted. I'm trying to tell you we can't hear you.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to start off by congratulating Officer Fadim on his retirement. Happy for him. He had a long career here, so good for him. As far as the grant goes, it is something that the grant paperwork is 3/4 of the way done. As far as the Lucas goes, I don't believe, with the paperwork that I was given by Councilor Cook and what I've seen online, I think the scholarship program deadline was up in March.
Right.
I could be wrong. I'm going to look again just to make sure that there wasn't another deadline. It is a very competitive grant, like Councilor Cook said. They stop accepting applications at 600. That's why I'm trying to get it done as quickly as possible. But absolutely, if we get it, it'd be a great thing. It was the Lucas chest compression system was something that was in the budget for last year. It did get cut because it was a capital item, and as we know, the situation that was before us this past year was a tough one. So I'd like to thank Councilor Cook for pointing this out to me. I didn't know about it, and we are certainly working on it and trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
Okay. So you don't really need anything from us. Chris has looked at it. The chief is interested. All we can say is good luck in writing it, and hope that we might be lucky enough to be chosen. Excellent.
I do want to say, I think Councilor Cook mentioned we can apply every once a quarter. So that's true if you don't get picked. If you do get picked, they ask you not to apply again for 2 years. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that is correct. But if you don't, it gives you a chance if you don't get picked to try again.
Exactly.
The other
Yeah.
thing is Bruce, I think the scholarship opens again in February.
Okay.
So, yeah, because I was looking through and I know it was closed, but it opens again in February of 2021. So anyway, it is something that you can premiere in the high school. It, behoove the fire department to do that if you want. I'm not telling you what to do.
Well, it sounds like a great program. John, you had a comment?
Yeah, Chief, when you submit the application, can you just ask Firehouse Subs to put a location here in town? That'd be awesome.
Sure.
They do have good sandwiches.
Good sandwiches. All right. Well, good luck then on it. It sounds like a great program. I know you'll work with the administrator. The fact that it doesn't have a match is even better. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed that we're one of the lucky ones. So thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Donna.
And yep, thank you, Donna. That brings us up to item B. Tax Assessor Robert requests vote to award the bid of the power plant appraisal services to George E. Sansucci, PE LLC, in the amount of $45,000. Is
He is.
Tax Assessor with us?
Yes, he is. Dave, you're on, right?
Dave, I know we
Yes,
went
I
out,
am.
I know that we went out to bid for this. So Dave, if you want to just explain your choice here and what you're asking for.
Sure. So yes, you're correct. Approximately a month ago, we went out to bid to get an appraisal done of the power plant. As you are probably all aware, the power plant right now in the town of Tiverton has a pilot agreement, which expires at the end of this year. And so I feel like obviously we have not had a appraisal done of that power plant. So moving forward, especially this year doing the revaluation, it would be timely to have the appraisal done of the power plant. We received 2 bids. Both were on the surface for $45,000, but one of them has some added costs for expenses such as travel and lodging and meals. Doing a review of both the bids, I feel like Mr. Sansucci is very well respected in the New England area. He's come very highly recommended, his firm. So considering everything, and the town administrator, Carter, also reviewed the 2 bids, we both came to the same conclusion that Mr. Sansucci would be the best fit for this project.
Excellent. Any questions from anyone on the council? John?
Thank you. So I was flipping through the extensive backup that you submitted. There's actually a lot. This is probably the most amount of backup for any one item I've seen in a while. But I was curious on the cost proposal here, right? We've got a breakdown. You mentioned 45,000 is the number, but is that all inclusive of all of the services that we need, or are there additional fees in here? Because it looks like there's a site tour for 10,000, summary appraisal report for 35,000.
Right. So
testimony for 9,900.
Right. So both those bids, if we do need to, if there's an appeal filed with a court, there would be some additional charges. But just for the summary appraisal, Mr. Sansucci is at 35,000, I believe. I don't have the document in front of me.
Yes.
And then discovery for 10. I did have a conversation with the firm, and that discovery number actually may be less, depending on timing and how cooperative the power plant is, which I don't anticipate any problems whatsoever. I've had several discussions with their controller, and he's on board, and he's looking forward to having the appraisal done. So we actually may end up being less than 45,000.
So in the other bidder, Dave, the summary was at 45 to start and included travel and other costs. It actually got up almost to $65,000. So.
Right.
And Dave is right also in that Mr. Sansucci's firm has done a number of power plants mostly in the New England area, where the other one was pretty much around the country, and there are other types of power plants, not as many gas-fired power plants as the one that he'd be looking at here. So the cost was a lot higher with the other vendor, which not that it would have knocked him out, because Dave did a very good job of making a score sheet of, I believe 3 of us looked at it, and we all came up with the same recommendations, so.
John?
So follow-up question to that, is 45 the amount that we have set aside for this? Or do we have more in the event that we need additional services, like if there's an appeal in the future?
We have 45 in the budget.
Okay, so.
Right. So there is funding. We put that money in a restricted account. If you recall, last year we did ask for additional funding for the revaluation account to cover this appraisal.
Okay. Madam President, if it's all right with you, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, John.
Before you make the motion, I think you should add that one more thing that we haven't discussed, and it's in conjunction with the current pilot program. I believe whatever the assessment comes out to, and I don't know how we do this, but maybe Travis can talk to Mike, but whatever that final number comes to, it should be confidential until such time that the council wants to determine whether or not they want to go through a pilot program or do they want to go with full assessment. So, and it's a working tool for Dave to use to come up the appropriate way to tax that facility. So I don't want the information disclosed simply because it's, we're going through that process now. I don't know how we keep that information confidential, other than that's something that we negotiate with the ultimate vendor that we pick.
Yeah. Travis?
Agreed. We can certainly do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
John?
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to grant the assessor the ability to award the bid for the power plant appraisal services to George E. Sansucci, PE LLC, in an amount not to exceed $45,000, and stipulate that the findings of such a report be held in confidence until a final evaluation is decided upon by the town. Is that good for you, Travis? Am I happy?
I like it.
Travis is happy. Is there a second?
I'll second that. I'll
Thank
second
you.
that.
Thanks, Joe. Councilor Clark?
Yes.
Councilor Driggs?
Yes.
Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor DiMederos? Denise, you're a yes?
Yes.
Councilor Cook?
Yes.
Councilor Perry?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Thank you, Dave.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Moving on, there are 2 items under my name. We talked about these a little bit. And these are resolutions for the General Assembly and our local contingent. The first is regarding state assistance regarding the COVID emergency. And frankly, the League of Cities and Towns has encouraged every municipality to do this. The net of it is that the state got $1.25 billion in CARES money. And Rhode Island is one of only 3 states in the entire country that has not distributed any of that CARES money to their municipalities. And particularly, one of the things that came up is that early on in all of this, we were encouraged by the state to spend whatever we needed for COVID relief, PPE equipment, whatever we needed to buy. And if you look around between police and fire and plenty of money that they've had to spend, but, plexiglass dividers, everything. And that this would all be reimbursed by FEMA. Well, as it turns out, it's not all being reimbursed by FEMA. And so every municipality has incurred expenses that were required and necessary by the state and were not being reimbursed for them. And most of us are all missing revenue in various components, some worse than others. So we are asking, along with any number of other municipalities, I don't know the number, but I believe it's quite a few, that the state develop a plan to, in fact, use some of that $1.25 billion that they have to offset our expenses, as well as, potentially review some of the other losses municipalities have suffered, and make us whole. So that is the point of the first resolution. Councillor Driggs?
Oh, I have a couple of questions. Reading through the CARES Act, and I have some just basic questions. I don't know if they still apply, but one thing that stood out so I'll just ask the questions I have, and then whoever can answer them, I'd appreciate it. The first thing I noticed is that it's absolutely clear under the CARES Act that a state does not have to allocate to any particular, does not have to allocate any of that money. The state could just keep it to itself. And so that's my first question, whether that's true.
That may be true. That may be true legally, but as I said, 47 other states in the country have taken some of their CARES money and distributed it to their municipalities to help offset their expenses. So the state.
That's my second question, because I don't have, I noticed, I know you gave that figure, and I don't know the date of what I got off the internet, but I did have a list of states, and for some reason it doesn't have a date on it, but there were like 13 states that hadn't distributed any money outside of the state on the list I had. And most of them were states that had only gotten that minimum of $1,250,000. So that's the other thing. Another question I had, and I'll just ask the questions and you can answer them, that this revenue can't be used to backfill lost revenues, and that this money has to be spent by, anything under the CARES had to be spent by December 30, 2020. And if you spent it in the wrong way, like inappropriately, not for a COVID related, something that they would consider legitimate, you have to repay the money. So that sounds like it's been a big issue with states, that the legislature and the executive are sort of nervous about going forward with making payments, because if they do it inappropriately or for something that really isn't covered, you have to repay it. And you only have until 12/30 to make these payments anyway. And then finally, a lot of states seem to have created an oversight committee to monitor the CARES Act fund in terms of with the legislature and the executive, to make sure that they are allocating, if they do choose to allocate it, that they're going to things that are appropriate. And my question is, to your knowledge, has Rhode Island created such an overnight fund? And I get back to my first question, do we have a statement from Rhode Island that they don't intend to allocate to any of the cities and towns? So those are my questions.
So I don't know about your 13 states. I do know that as of right now, in some way, shape, or form, there are only 3 states that have not distributed any money locally. Yes, there are restrictions on what it can be used for, but certainly it can be used, and other states are using this to reimburse municipalities for COVID-related expenses that are not being, reimbursed by FEMA. I don't know, the state has, and Chris might be able to answer this better. The only thing that I have ever seen from the state in terms of the CARES spending is that there is a public database that's available that you can look at to see all of the money that the state has spent on literally hundreds and hundreds of different vendors and different types of activity. But I don't know that there's any oversight thing. Chris, do you know of any such thing?
Yes, the governor did appoint somebody to be an overseer of the CARES fund. I don't particularly have the name off the top of my head, but she did this, I want to say at the early part of June, she named, and it's just escapes me at the moment, but she did name somebody fairly prominent to oversee the fund. As far as the 3 states go, that was a report from the National League of Cities. It is fairly accurate. And the other piece that you did state, the funds don't have to be extended by December of 2020. They have to be, they can absorb issues up through December of 2021. So the theory behind it is that the governor is keeping these funds to deal with the state's losses, which we fully agree with, that's probably the most prudent thing to do. It's the other state local maintenance of effort issues that like the pilot programs, that the reimbursements for certain state aids that are being reduced. The cities and towns are getting hit on those ends. Most of the cities and towns believe that some of this, the match for the FEMA money should come out of the CARES money. And that's every state is doing that except for Rhode Island right now. So there are certain things that a lot of the cities and towns are looking to utilize some of these funds for, because we've adopted the programs that the governor has asked us to do in support of mitigating the COVID issues, but yet we're not receiving any reimbursement for the town's expenses.
Well, Chris, has the state indicated to you why they aren't reimbursing?
No, they've yet to, we're not getting any answers about,
Float.
every time we ask these questions, it's like crickets. Believe me, every city and town manager, every mayor is completely frustrated with this process. Now, I've been one of the few people who've been adamant that I'm fine with, while we don't like the losses that we've incurred, as long as we're getting the reported amounts that were stated that we would get as far as state aid goes, then we really don't have the losses other than our big gaming loss, which obviously is a big hit to this town, but it is an anomaly compared to many of the other towns. So we do have a significant loss based on other cities and towns just as it relates to that. But we would like to see our police overtime, our fire department overtime, anything directly related to dealing with these COVID related issues to be reimbursed and at least have the matches covered by FEMA that through these CARES monies. And we're just not getting any answer when those questions are asked.
John?
So it's not an affirmative that we are not going to pay you. It's just, it's crickets. They're waiting on the state to pass its budget. We're just not getting any real answers and we can't get any real direction. So every city and town has been filing these resolutions to at least put the legislature and the governor on notice that, we have concerns.
John?
Thank you. I look at it from this perspective. The state budget is what, $600–900 million in the hole.
Yep.
Even 3 basis points in monthly yield on the 1.25 billion gets you, some of that gap closed. I look at it from the perspective of the reason why we're hearing crickets is because any additional float revenue or yield that the state can pick up on the cash assets is going to help them in their budget. From my perspective, I think that this is incredibly necessary. We need to join, hand in hand with the other municipalities that are letting the state know that, we should be reimbursed for these things because we were told that we would be reimbursed for them. And it's not fair to all of us municipalities to shoulder the burden and to run into potential deficit and budget issues, when the state has the money. And I would take it even a step further. Some of the other questions I would have is, for our school department that, we immediately had to pivot to a distance learning model. This school department went out and had to purchase all of this additional technology. Think of all the Chromebooks and the iPads and such that the school had to provide to students so that they would be able to be educated. Something like that should be coming out of the CARES money as well. And hopefully our school department is, applying for reimbursement also. And as for anybody who's curious, the website is transparency.ri.gov /COVID-19. That's actually the website with the transparency portal and all the information on what the state spent. So, out of that 1.25 billion, looks like the state spent 268 million so far. So they have the resources. There's no reason why they shouldn't cut the check. And, I think that we should pass this unanimously to, join with the other municipalities and send a message to the state.
Don, what was that website again? Because that was another question I had, how much they had left over still.
Transparency.ri.gov.
Okay, and then there's something beyond that.
/COVID-19.
Thank you. Okay, thank
And
you.
you're right, John, the schools are also, part of this resolution as well. I'm more familiar with the town side, but I will say that the schools are also struggling with trying to get reimbursements for the exposures that they've seen as well.
And the bottom line is it directly, plays into our next agenda item. But, if if the schools aren't reimbursed, that maintenance of effort issue comes up, and, the municipality, once again has to, handle the short end of the stick. So, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve this resolution.
There's a motion then. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, second. Any other discussion? I mean, keep in mind, this is just a resolution. It's not, all we're doing is voicing our concern to the General Assembly and our representatives and to the governor that, we can't continue to carry these expenses without some reimbursement, which we were promised, at the beginning of all of this. So, yes.
I have a question.
Before we go to a vote,
Hang on, Donna, let me get to Nancy, then I'll get to you.
can I just ask before we go to vote, can I ask Travis so if we did stuff as a municipality in reliance upon promises, or however you want to phrase it, from the state, that we would be reimbursed, do we have any legal action besides just a resolution?
Absolutely. I mean, Michael and I haven't spoken in detail about it, but there's certainly a detrimental reliance action, potentially a breach of contract action. I mean, there was an agreement made between municipalities and the state. We haven't looked in detail on all the legal theories, in hopes and in thinking that we would eventually get reimbursed and that these resolutions would work. But in the event that it does not, then I would say absolutely. There's potential for sure.
Donna, you had a question?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, and because I don't even know do they even read these resolutions? Do they even bother with them? I mean, it's just, and they know there's going to be a problem with the MOE, and also the library comes under the MOE too. So problem. They already know this.
They might, but it does help. It does help when all of the municipalities are sending in resolutions to the General Assembly, and when there is pressure, and it's united. It may not do anything, but the other option is to say, well, we'll just sit here and not do anything. So at the very least, I think we should try and represent the town's position to the General Assembly and to the administration. And hopefully the General Assembly at the very least, and remember, those folks represent us directly, can put pressure, and they are also responsible for passing the state budget. So there's a motion and there's a second. Yes? John?
John, please.
Just one more point too. I mean, for what it's worth, anybody watching, if you go on that website, you can see where the state's already spent some of this money. For us to not be reimbursed for PPE for, our frontline workers, like in the police and the fire department, and yet, they've spent $324,000 of what they've expended so far to the Rhode Island Council on the Arts to give out grants to various organizations. I think it's shameful that the state hasn't reimbursed us for what we've applied for.
So then a general question, if we were to address as a town council the possibility of bringing a lawsuit for detrimental reliance, is that something that would have to be on the agenda that we discuss as a town council? We couldn't do it tonight?
We could not do it tonight. It is not on the it's not on the agenda.
I necessarily don't know if the claim is absolutely ripe yet either. We have not been denied the claim. We have not been given an express representation. In the event that that does happen and these resolutions do not work and the claim becomes ripe, meaning ready to be brought before a court, then we can certainly talk about next steps.
But Travis, let me ask you a general question. Is the resolution the kind of claim we should be doing now, or should we as a town be writing directly to the state, asking the executive, asking for reimbursement? Is the resolution the avenue to go to make it right?
Well, right now, our resolution is joining in with the other municipalities to show force in our how we are united in this action or in this request. So I think it's.
But if the resolution just sits, is there another thing we could be doing to make it right that the state is saying we refuse?
Potentially a formal demand, but I think that right now where we're at, I think this is a good first step to see where the state turns or what their action is after these get done.
Okay.
I just have one more to follow up on Nancy. It's nice to have a resolution, and we could put that if this is a resolution being put forward by Tiverton, that we intend, if we do not get the money that was promised in many statements, go ahead and we'll reimburse you, that we will go forward and sue for the money, because they have till December 30th to distribute the money, and then what happens after that? I think we have to have a little more teeth in this than going, well, we'll just put a resolution in. Okay, we will, but we need to follow it, that we will sue.
Okay,
We don't get it.
I think that, but that's not, a discussion of possible legal action against the state is not on the agenda tonight.
Okay,
And
so
Donna,
let's
I
put it
don't
on
know
the
if-
agenda for next meeting.
I don't know if you heard Chris that the deadline is not December 30th. Essentially, there's another year that the state has to use that money. The other thing I would also just caution you in terms of having a discussion about, sort of what was promised and what wasn't. Just to keep in mind that the majority of these directions to do these things and the, don't worry about it, you'll get them reimbursed, were done verbally in conference calls. So there are no written contractual agreements on any of this stuff. So I would suggest that if anyone had an interest before this becomes some sort of public discussion, that the appropriate thing to do would be to discuss it with the solicitor, and as to whether or not it's even an appropriate discussion, keeping in mind that we've already directed our solicitor to investigate and pursue, in this case, some sort of, if not reimbursement, but to make us somewhat whole on the casino revenue. So that's a whole separate thing, which the solicitor is currently working on now. And that is a very sizable amount of money. And the litigation budget, only goes so far. So there is a motion, and is there a second for this?
Yes.
To adopt this resolution?
I second it.
And Denise seconded it. So unless there's any other discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. Councilor Clark?
Yes.
Councilor Driggs?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Councilor DiMederos?
Yes.
Councilor Cook?
Yes.
Councilor Perry?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Which brings us to the second resolution, which has to do with maintenance of effort. As you may know, the state has not yet passed a budget. So we're in the middle of October and there's no budget yet, which means that we do not actually know for sure what our reimbursement is going to be on school aid particularly. And it's not expected that there's going to be a budget until after the election. So we're essentially, in a position where should we end up with significantly less state aid than we were initially led to believe that we would be getting in the, pre-budget release from RIDE, that we would have to make up the difference on maintenance of effort. And then that raises the question as to whether or not that portion of maintenance of effort becomes our permanent maintenance of effort going forward. And it is a little bit scary right now because the state budget is in such a shambles. And, on any given year, it's normal that we project a number of state aid that we're going to get. And then, because we set our budget in May and because they don't actually adopt their budget until the end of June, sometimes those numbers are different. And sometimes they're different by not, it's still money, but it's not an enormous amount, $75,000 or whatever it is. And occasionally we can get a little bit more. Last year, Chris, the difference was
319,000, I think it was.
Yeah. So last year we got $319,000 less in state aid than we had projected, which meant that we needed to take that out of the municipal side because we had adopted a budget which guaranteed the school department a certain amount of money. This year, given the state's budget deficit, it's even more frightening. No one really knows. I mean, we could be looking at sizable cuts in state aid, and we have already adopted our budget. We have already committed a number to the school department, and of course, they need to have one to be able to open up and operate for the year. So this resolution is essentially, asking the state, to allow us to operate with the school budget that we have adopted, because it's, already October for the year. And that also in the event that there is a significant cut at the state level that we have to make up in the future, that doesn't necessarily set our maintenance of effort at that place. Nancy?
I have a couple of questions. The first thing that occurs to me is I remember we had, we agreed to a continuation of our FTR for 6 weeks or whatever it was, pending the state budget. We still don't have a state budget, yet we went ahead with our FTR. So I don't quite understand what that was all about. Secondly, I thought there was a way to get a waiver or I don't know what the word is, a release from the maintenance of effort because of certain emergency situations, whether it's the library or the school. And can't we do that kind of a thing?
So, we did push our FTR back, hoping, that the state would have a budget, which they didn't. However, we weren't in a position to continue to push the FTR back and push the FTR back and push the FTR back because we had contractual obligations that we had to meet, and we couldn't operate with last year's budget and fulfill contractual obligations that we had. So eventually, we had to go ahead, as did almost everybody else in the state who was also delaying and waiting for the state to finally do a budget. And they just haven't, and they're not going to do one before the election. So
can we get a waiver from the state of maintenance of effort based on this emergency situation?
No.
No, we can't, right?
No, we cannot.
Why?
Because we're required to follow the RIDE formula to provide education there is no relief to that for an emergency.
Right.
Is that just for the library maintenance of effort?
No, that's for education as well.
That's for education.
No, but I mean, I remember when I was on the budget committee, we could have filed for some relief from the maintenance of effort requirement from the library based on our emergency budgetary stuff. Does that not apply for the school too?
That would not apply. That's not applicable. That they've changed that in the funding formula for education. That's no longer applied. You're set with your maintenance of effort based on what the prior appropriation was. So there is no relief to it for emergency.
Nor do I think we should, but.
No, I agree too, that they need to operate, but.
Right. Now, I'm a little confused, Trish, and I don't know if I'm not understanding this, but this resolution is saying that if we have to supplement their budget with money from the town instead of what we receive from the state, you're saying that's going to affect the maintenance of effort for next year?
Yes.
Because we put that amount in?
Yes. So if we, for example, if they, come back and tell us we're getting, $500,000 less.
And then we put that money in, God knows where we'll get it, but if we do,
well, that's a whole nother
we'll
problem.
have to.
But that would set our maintenance of effort there.
500,000 more. Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's hope it isn't 500,000.
I mean, let's hope it isn't, and it may not be, but at this point, given the status of the budget, I mean, we just don't know. I mean, nobody really knows. And honestly, given the way that the state has essentially, and I'm sorry to say this, but treated the municipalities in terms of pushing expenses onto us and not reimbursing us for things, so far the track record hasn't been great.
Yep, I agree. But this doesn't affect, I just want to make it clear, this doesn't affect the maintenance of effort that we're required to pay this year. This is just the future maintenance of effort.
So let me explain.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
So if the state walks away from what they said they would originally fund, it would affect our maintenance of effort for this year. We would have to make up the difference.
Right.
The resolution is asking us
that difference.
And the issue is, if whatever we would have to make up would become the new base for the next fiscal year as well. So it's a double whammy. So
Mr. Cotter, we're missing our solicitor. Can you add him?
I'm sorry. Hang on. I didn't know we were missing him. Hang on.
Yeah, I think I just want to make it clear that this doesn't affect the school budget for this year.
No, it doesn't affect their budget. They would still get what they're entitled to.
Right.
The issue is who pays the bill and where the next year's maintenance of effort issue comes to. Most cities and towns are asking if there is going to be a cut to the budget on their side, that they make it up with the CARES money so that the schools are not at all harmed.
I was just going to ask that.
It doesn't harm us for a new base for the following year. So that's the genesis of why the resolution is important.
Okay.
Right, but it would not, the schools would get, no matter what, the appropriation that was voted on, that was adopted at the FTR. There's no.
That's correct. They will get exactly what there's appropriation for.
They will get exactly what
the. Sure, we make that clear.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no one here is.
This is not at all to hurt the schools. This is just to make sure that there are, that we don't get hurt on the Corfer side of the budget, so that we continue to dwindle that general fund reserve down to the point where we can't support the schools. So we're asking to have at least some recognition of that base number for maintenance of effort for going forward. If the state walks away from it, we will have to fund it no matter what the number is, because it's an appropriation for them.
Right.
So, and we won't walk away from our obligations. That's not what the resolution's about. It's setting to move forward what happens. And we're at, all the cities and towns are asking if there is going to be a cut to this, that it would come out of the CARES money to make up the difference, so the towns don't have to absorb this. because we actually made decisions in a vacuum. We had no information to make these decisions with. So we moved forward, no different than, we would have done had we done it in May, but we were trying to wait to get an appropriate information out of the state legislature, which we haven't gotten yet.
But all of us have gotten written the state before we spent this money based on this care stuff, all the cities and towns.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Nancy?
All these cities and towns that are filing these resolutions, sure the state reimburses them for what they thought they were going to get. Were we all remiss in not getting some kind of written confirmation that if we spend this money, we're going to get reimbursed from the CARES?
So we all spent these monies based on the guidance that we're getting out of the state. So, and I'll give you an example.
And I gather it was
In the town hall, we have to clean this building every day. We have to send cleaners out to do all of our municipal buildings. Anytime you have the public come in, we have to do it. None of that is reimbursable. None of it. It's normal functions that our maintenance people have to do. They consider it to be every day. It's not extra, even though it takes them away from doing the things that they were doing every day. They no longer can do those. So those are unreimbursed expenditures.
even though they're
That's
doing
just
it
a simple look. Excuse me?
even though they're now doing it because of COVID?
Correct. They are doing it because of COVID. That's the issue. They wouldn't be doing it but for COVID, but it's not reimbursable anymore. They are not reimbursing us for it. So there are expenses the town is incurring that we did when we were told that we had to do these things of these cleaning issues. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing them, believe me. That's the last thing I want to do is expose anybody to any kind of germs or anything like that that would potentially get them sick. So we are providing those services, but they become unreimbursable, and the state will not come to the table and say, oh, we asked you to do that, but we're not going to pay for it now. So that's what every city and town is going through this.
But that's my issue is should all these cities and states, including Tiverton, at the time we now did these extra measures because of the COVID, gotten at that point a written reassurance from the state that they would reimburse us?
Mrs. Driggs, every city and town leader has been asking, the state is in these meetings every week. And every week we ask these questions and we get nothing for response as to whether or not we can expect any monies to come. And we've been told that the cities and towns will receive nothing of these CARES monies, this 1.25 billion, that we are not in the potential payment stream, that we are not to expect any monies of it, that our only reimbursement is for those allowable expenditures through FEMA, which is really only very, very limited expenditures related to police and fire only.
Right. So the state has.
But Nancy, here's the thing that you need to understand. These things that we're doing, they're written, they're written adopted policies of the Board of Health or something. We don't have a choice. I guess in a way we do, but then we're liable. In other words, if when the Department of Health, publishes these cleaning protocols, right? And these are the published cleaning protocols that we're supposed to be following, and those come from the state. Well, we could say, okay, well, if you're not going to pay us for this, we're not going to do this. But then when our employees all get sick because we're not, so the idea that somehow we could get the state to sign some piece of paper that says, if we follow the regulations, we're getting reimbursed. I'm sorry, it's not how it works.
They're not going to do it.
Well, it sounds wacky to me.
Well, listen, the whole COVID thing is wacky, but on the other hand, essentially no one's saying we shouldn't be doing these things. We should be, because they're for our own health and our own safety. But what the state has essentially done is created for us via policy a whole bunch of
unfunded
mandates. Sure. Okay, that's what we have. What we have here are a whole bunch of unfunded mandates that we don't really have a choice that we have to follow, but they're not reimbursing us for it out of the CARES money, which they legally could do according to the federal guidelines.
And that includes the education department as well.
And the education department as well. John?
Madam President. at the risk of belaboring this, I think we're all in agreement that we need to send a message to the state, and we need to join with our neighboring municipalities and every other municipality in the state. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution. I'll give you the exact number here. Actually, we don't have a number on it yet, but to approve this resolution regarding the emergency exemption for all Rhode Island municipalities in the computation of the maintenance of effort requirements established by RIGL 16723.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Unless there's anything else, I'm going to go for a vote. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Okay, and I am also a yes. Which brings us on our agenda to, where's my page that we're up to?
MOE.
Item D, Town Administrator, discussion of memorandum of agreement between the Town of Tiverton and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Local 406, regarding proposed reorganization of the police department. Chris?
So I know that this was in the contract. I did start to go through this and look at it prior to the end of the last fiscal year. But because our budget hadn't been passed yet, it was important to make sure that those fundings were in place before we started the discussion. I will say that I did meet with the police chief and the union about this particular matter this past week. Their only requirement really is that if we are going to do this, that it be from somebody from within. What I wanted to do is, I did today ask the chief to prepare a draft job description for a deputy chief. And I just wanted the council's view on the things that, you're the people who put this in the contract. Before we go through the process of, perfecting it and, getting a name and a contract in front of you, I wanted to make sure that if there's anything you wanted, that you let me know before I go down that road. I don't want it to be a stumble if we can at all avoid that. So I just wanted you all to be aware that we're going down this process, and we'll probably have something in front of you probably at your next meeting. But if there's something that you think that I need to know before we go any further with this, I just wanted to get it on your platter first.
I have something I'd like to say. May I speak?
I'm assuming, do we lose Trish?
I don't know where Trish went. Go ahead, Donna.
All right, I don't know what happened. Okay. Well, I saw this and I did ask for what the job specifications were, because I had nothing to look at. I also looked at the police contract, and other than one wording of a deputy police, really is nothing listed about it. I did read that it seemed to be an assistant to the police chief. There was a lot of that in the draft. And, a couple of years ago, they had the chief, and then they had a lieutenant, and they wanted to be, and they redid the police department because other police departments had a captain. And Patrick, the chief now, became the captain. And so that people from other police stations, I guess the complaint is that they wanted to talk to someone higher up than a lieutenant. So the one captain to another captain. Anyway, if it made sense to them, I wasn't on the council, but okay. So now all of a sudden, I'm trying to figure out why we need more middle management at this particular time, with the budgets being so difficult. The other thing I don't understand is how one deputy police chief equals 2 police officers. That was the deal. And I can't figure out how, if they needed 2 police officers to do the schedule and to patrol, how, because they're going to get a deputy police chief, that they don't need these two other officers, how that impacts the schedule. Is it going to be more overtime? And is this deputy police chief, is he then out of the realm of patrolling? I'm just not understanding how this is going to work. And considering that we're having so much trouble with finances, you know, publicly looking at, you know, making another middle management at $78,000 a year, that's just the cost of the paycheck. That's not the cost of, I mean, what is the full cost of this position? That's not stated. So I wasn't for it before because I just don't understand it. The other thing is that the school resource officer, which the school department doesn't want to pay for, that we have to pay the whole thing now because it's in the contract, which I don't understand either, because that was the deal. They were supposed to pay half of that, and they're not. So could someone please I don't understand why we need another middle management person at all.
So Chief Jones is with us. Patrick?
I'm on.
Okay. Patrick, could, you know, and just keeping in mind that this position was discussed and budgeted and adopted in the FTR. So this isn't something out of the blue. It was actually something that we discussed and actually adopted in the budget this year. So Patrick, would you like to explain a little bit the background behind this?
Of course. So to address some of Councilor Cook's concerns, first off, this isn't a middle manager. And I also don't want to get it confused. And just for the record, this is a non-union position. The town administrator, there was a memorandum of agreement that was discussed in the last union contract, because if you all recall, I was the captain, but I was in the union. Chief Blakey retired. I became your acting police chief, and I was still in the union because there are no other administrators of the captain, lieutenant, and all of the ranking officers of the police department. The chief of police is the only non-union position. So after we had some of the issues that we had with internal affairs issues that required us to call the state police on several occasions, and you're having your police chief, I had to do it twice, conduct internal affairs investigations, which is a whole separate discussion. It was agreed upon that we would approach the union and ask them to take the captain out of the union. So the number 2 person who answers directly to the chief of police is out of the union. And as someone, if I may, who has served in that position longer than anyone else, you cannot serve 2 masters. You can't be in the union and you can't be the chief's right-hand person. It just didn't work. The union initially agreed, but as they took that back to the body, and the body came back with, meaning that the rank and file of the police union, they felt that by taking that position out of the union, it was giving the town too much control to put in that position whoever they wanted, including a person from outside the police department who was not a Tiverton police officer. So through negotiations, the position was kept in the union of captain. But what we told the town, the union, and what was agreed upon is that the town is well within its rights to make a non-union position at the rank of deputy police chief, which is what we had 14 years ago. But that position, the officer who had it then retired, and it was never filled again. So going forward from my position, I wanted to bring the deputy police chief back. If not for any other reasons, and I know I kind of delineated some of these issues in the job description, is someone to maintain discipline, who, with all due respect to the union, is not part of the union. The last two incidents that we've had involving misconduct by police officers required me to call the Rhode Island State Police to come in and do it. And that's not to say that I wouldn't do it again. But given my position as chief of police and also as someone who has to make as the arbiter of discipline, I would be investigating the officer and then disciplining the officer. We need to have someone who acts as a middle person. And that would be one of the many roles of the deputy police chief, which is why it was taken out of the union, which is why the captain was left in, which was why it was made part of the budget cycle this past cycle, so we could do that going forward. And now, as we all know, with the nationwide issues that we're dealing with, police accountability, responsibility, and liability, the need for a deputy police chief in our department of 31 police officers is a necessity. And to also address some of Councilor Cook's concern as well, the union contract does state that we must have 27 full-time police officers, including myself as your chief of police. Currently, we have 29. Actually, with the retirement of Officer Ferdinand, we're at 28, but we have an officer in the academy, and we are going through a recruitment process as we speak. So we are at or above, actually, contractual minimums, and not even including the deputy police chief. So, and I understand your concerns about finances. We are actively recruiting police officers or trying to recruit police officers, but our issue isn't the lack of funding, with all due respect, and I take that into account, I assure you, it's the lack of qualified applicants. So we can avoid what we've experienced in the past with misconduct on the part of your police officers. It is a necessity that we hire good, ethical, moral police officers because they are a lifelong investment. So the deputy police chief is someone who adds to that. And I will also say, and then I'll open it up and stop talking, is the deputy police chief, bringing it back, is someone, if I were to retire, I'll even say this, if I were to get COVID, your police department would be run by someone who is within the union. And that's not to say they can't do it, with all due respect to the captain, who is a union member and an exceptional police officer. You don't have someone else. If I were to retire today, you'd have to appoint someone from within your department. The whole purpose of the deputy police chief is to act as a stepping stone. So you have someone who's ready to take the reins of your police department if your chief leaves. That is on top of everything else that I've already mentioned.
I concur with all the chief's comments, and I do agree that it gives the town much more in the way of management rights and management ability to manage that department.
Anyone else?
And
Well,
yeah,
Donna,
I
can
just
we
wanna,
can I let everybody else have a turn, and then?
oh yeah, well, all
And
right.
Denise, you had your hand up. You're muted, Denise.
I did, but the chief excuse me, I did, but the chief answered my questions.
Okay. Anybody else? I do have one question, Chris. You mentioned, and I just want to
I
clarify.
was waiting.
I know, but Donna, I haven't had a chance to ask a question, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Since you had a chance to speak. Chris, you mentioned the union position that the deputy chief slot has to be filled internally. Is that under consideration for an MOU or?
It was, but both the chief and I agreed, and we don't necessarily think it's mandatory. They would like one, but we don't necessarily have to agree to that because it is, even according to the MOU that's in the agreement, it's, it's just that we had to have the discussion, which we did have. And I am actually in agreement with them that it should, at least the first one should come from within. I don't know if there will ever be another one, but at this point, I'd be agreeable to it, but I'm not necessarily in agreement that we have to have an MOU.
Okay, I would just like to say that on the MOU point, and I agree that, if there's an internal candidate, absolutely, that's always the way to go. But from a philosophical point of view, I do have an issue in general with a union having control or any direction, and not just the police union, but any union having control or direction over who we hire into administrative positions. I just don't think that that's a smart way to go. And, you could always find yourself in a position at some point, you hope you don't, but, with a young department, young lieutenants, maybe a brand new captain, and there isn't for some reason a good internal candidate. So that would be the only thing, is that I would be opposed to an MOU on that, just kind of on principle.
Okay.
Anybody else? Donna, then, do you have another question?
No, it wasn't a question. I wanted to thank the chief for answering all those questions and also giving me some history on that. And with his explanation, it makes perfect sense to me now. So I thank him for that. I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm not sure, Chris, that you need anything from us tonight. It's only a discussion. You're not asking for a vote from us for,
I'm not, I'm just asking that if you have something to weigh in on before we go down this road, to please let me know now so that I can try to incorporate whatever your concerns are.
All right. I think mine is only the MOU on that. Although I do agree that in any case that there's a qualified internal candidate, that should be our pick. So if there are no more on that, we'll move on to Councilor Cook, discussion on reinstating dog nuisance ordinance.
Well, it's been a long, rocky road. It's almost like pulling teeth. I'm just gonna say how I feel about it. I worked trying to get many animal ordinances and was willing to put my time in. And the one that was started and was that, why don't we start with dogs by the solicitor? And I said, fine. And the two big ones was care of dogs to me, and to make sure that it mirrored the state law so that people didn't have to keep referencing it. I said, that's ridiculous. It just should be that one. And the other one was the nuisance dog ordinance, which became very, very difficult. First, somehow they couldn't find it, and Nancy Mello was trying to help us with that. And then it became clear that the reason why it was repealed was that the wording was not legal. The word annoyance was within it. And the solicitor, Michael, was thinking and feeling that that's a reason it became illegal, because something annoying is subjective to a person. It's really not a legal term to do anything about a dog or what they're doing or some animal. If I'm incorrect on that, Attorney DeCosta, just please let me know. So the thing is that there's a real need with the animal control officer to have something in place. She has nothing to help her with her job when there's complaints. So as time went on and I kept saying, please help me put this together, finally I thought, am I supposed to write it myself? Because I just want to, clear it up, whether I'm supposed to write it myself or whether you're supposed to help me with it, because I'm not getting any help. And that's what I said to Michael. And he said, well, then he said it was not legal. So I said, well, what do we have to do? So I waited 2 weeks and nothing happens. So I got busy and I put something together with bullet points, leaving out the word annoyance. And I'm not a lawyer, so I didn't know what else it needed to make it legal. And I sent it to him and nothing happened. So now time's going on, and November 3rd is coming and I do not have it done. And I'm very, very disappointed. And
Donna, I'm gonna just stop you there for a second under Robert's rules here. the agenda item says discussion on reinstating the dog nuisance ordinance.
We can't.
What, we can't?
No, because I just said it's illegal.
Okay, well, okay, I'm not sure then where we're going with this agenda. If you're saying that the dog nuisance ordinance can't be reinstated because it's illegal, that's one thing. I also don't think, in all fairness to the town solicitor who's not here tonight, you know, to go through some sort of history of because he may have a different perspective on his participation in this. But the agenda says we're going to have a discussion on reinstating the dog nuisance ordinance. If the answer is that we can't do it, then that's the discussion item. A discussion item about who participated in what level in this, especially when all of those participants aren't here, that you know, now we're talking about something completely different, which is not actually on the agenda.
Well, I'm surprised it's on the agenda.
Well,
okay, because the last is he put something together, and I want it to be legal, and I want it to be stated correctly. And all of us, I have no idea why it's on here because I have nothing.
So if I could just interject briefly, this is a matter I have very little knowledge on. I know Mike has been, or you've been in contact with Mike about this. Mike and I spoke about this particular agenda item very briefly today. He did indicate that it is on his radar. He's had a lot of things that have kind of kept him busy, but this is something that he is going to be getting to, and he was hoping that we could table it for the next meeting, and he would have a response for that meeting. That's all that I spoke with him about today.
So, unless I think the only option here is to table it if there's nothing to specifically discuss on reinstating the dog nuisance ordinance other than the existing one cannot be reinstated as is.
Can you put the reason it's tabled because the solicitor himself requested it's on his radar, but he can't get to it to the next meeting?
No, I'm saying it needs to be tabled because the agenda item, Counselor Cook, did you submit this agenda item?
No.
This wasn't in your name.
That shouldn't have been on.
Probably because I'm supposed to do it, but I don't have anything, or what I have no idea actually.
Okay, because this is listed under your name on the agenda. So who
And
put
I told them unless there was something legally worded, not to bother.
Okay, well, there seems to be some confusion then as to how this even got on the agenda. So I'm going to suggest that if there's something for the council to actually discuss vis-a-vis a dog ordinance, that it actually go on the agenda with the backup at the next meeting.
Agreed.
Okay.
I don't have anything to say. I'm kind of upset right now with what I've been working with this since March, and I still don't have it.
Okay, I'm asking you please to stay within Robert's rules. You are now starting to discuss performance, which you are way outside of the agenda item as well as potentially open meetings laws. So this is not the appropriate forum for that. So I'm going to move on to announcements and comments and discussions to the town clerk, who has an update for us on the November 3rd general election. Nancy?
Okay, so the election is coming soon. And today was at 4 o'clock was the last day to apply for a mail ballot application. So we can no longer take any mail ballot applications received in the office after 4 o'clock today. Emergency voting is going to begin tomorrow, the 14th. That's 8:30 to 4, Monday to Friday, at the town hall only. The doors will be open for voting purposes. You can come in and there's a voting setup there where you can actually put your ballot into the voting machine. What we do ask is that people try to, should we start to get too many at once, that people try to maintain some social distancing, and they should be wearing a mask to come to the town hall. We do have the ballot box is now outside. It's been mounted into cement. It also has a camera on it, recording 24/7. And just to let you know how that's working out, over the weekend, 8:30 this morning, when the girls checked the ballot box, you have to have 2 Board of Canvass members out there to get that. And there was 198 mail ballots in there. That was at 8:30 this morning. At 2 o'clock, I checked it with Christine Miguel, and there was another 195 ballots just from 8:30 to 2 o'clock today put in there, along with mail ballot applications and everything else. So it seems to be working well. There is a check and balance system that the state sends a courier every day to pick up a box with the counted ballots in it. They do not have keys. They can only be opened up at the Board of Election. And there is documentation on both ends to make sure everything's proven properly. So that is going along. We're still in need of some poll workers. We're making some headway, but we're still going to need some more.
Can I ask a question, Nancy?
Sure.
When do they open those mail-in ballots?
That's all done up at the state. So I don't really know. That's done at the state. Any mail ballots are transported to the State Board of Elections. They handle all that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not quite sure
From
when.
that box that where you collect them, they go up to the state?
Yes, a courier comes and picks them every single day, brings us an empty box and takes a locked one.
Okay.
John, you have a question?
Yes, Madam Clerk, just for everybody listening, what do we pay for our poll workers? That may be incentive for some people to volunteer.
Well, for our
lunch, you get lunch.
Supervisors, we pay $170 for the day. We're below the middle of the road on some of this because with the demand for poll workers, some of these communities are paying quite well. But we pay $170 for a supervisor. That means you're there at 6:15 in the morning and you don't leave there till sometime after 9 o'clock at night. We do provide dinner and we now provide coffee in the morning, coffee and donuts in the morning. For our clerks, which to me is the most difficult job there, we pay $180. And for our moderators, which are in charge of that poll location for the day, we pay $190. Now, we also have to, for this emergency voting, when it was the primary or the FTR, the clerk's office helped out a lot so that we weren't quite as busy, but we can't do that right now. So we have 2, and we really should have 3 supervisors working the town hall for these emergency days. And we are paying them $75 for half day, and I think it's $120 for full day. So they are compensated, but it is a very long day and a bit of a little stressful day. You've got to be aware. We're now using poll pads, and so it's a something that you really have to be attentive to.
Thank you. Might I suggest that since recently retired officer Fredema said he has a ton of time on his hands, we place a phone call to him.
There we go. All right. And Nancy, you also have an update on the Center for Tech and Civic Light Grant Award for $6,387.50.
Yes, this, I think you've probably read of this grant. It was pretty much, I don't want to say guaranteed, but it was pretty much that each community would be given a minimum of $5,000 that applied. And it has to do with the age of your voters and the number of voters. They take everything. And then what you've done regarding protective equipment and things like that. So we were awarded $6,387, which I was quite pleased with because some communities only got the $5,000. It had to do with how much we had in our budget as well to, and this year we happened to put extra in the budget, but you know, I was glad to get that amount. We're definitely using it towards the protective equipment we need, and it'll be used quickly.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. I think that is everything that we have for the evening. So I will accept a motion to adjourn if there is one.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I'll take a by hand or by voice vote. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.